Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the ProgCast. And I know I've been promising you some major figures from the British progressive music scene. And today is just such an occasion. I have a man who is a bass player, a guitarist, a composer, and for many of us, his is the voice of Canterbury. So I'm very pleased to welcome to the ProgCast Mr. Richard Sinclair. Hi, Richard. Welcome.
Hello, Greg. Very nice to hear your voice.
I have so many questions for this gentleman, and I'm just very honored to have him on the program. As you know, I'm a longtime fan of Canterbury progressive rock music, and this guy was there since the beginning. So, Richard, talk to me.
Yeah.
Tell me about your beginnings in Canterbury. I know there's such an interesting family background too to your musical life.
Okay, do you want the full works then? And thank you for your wonderful introduction. It's very nice. I'm highly honored to be able to talk to you. And so there you go. Yes, on the 6th of the 6th, 1948, I was born in Nine Downs Road. My great-grandfather's brother was mayor of Canterbury in 1850. And really, it's a family that's always been very artistically, whatever, a bunch of artists, My father was the number one singer in Canterbury and all the rest of it. And that's how I started what you know as the Canterbury scene, which is the grammar school boys, Brian and Hugh Hopper. And at the age of 15, I was taken up to the Hugh Hopper home, Tanglewood in Giles Lane, just outside Canterbury, where the whole thing started. But it didn't actually start at Wildflower. It wasn't called Wildflowers then, okay? It was just two boys starting a band that was in Canterbury. And the only reason why I was there was because Mr. and Mrs. Hopper, Brian and Hugh's parents, used to go to dinner dance concerts where my father would have either his quintet or, and he'd be singing to them. And then after one of these concerts, they said to my father, "Oh, our boys are starting a band." And my dad said, "Oh, I've just bought Richard a guitar. He plays guitar. La la la, dee dee dee. My Hofner very thin. He bought me also an AC piggyback amp, so I was getting rid of all the neighbours and all that sort of stuff, And he took me up there, and I sort of joined Hugh and Brian, who already, have been in discussions with Robert and everybody to do that. It actually became the Wildflowers, basically. In the end, it's quite a anyway, to cut a short story as long as possible, I had a couple of years learning to play Chuck Berry music and things like that, and eventually Robert joined, and then Kevin joined, and when Kevin joined, it was he called it Wildflowers, i.e. Oscar Wilde, Wiled. And so there it started for me. And in 1965, we did our first concert as the Wildflowers just outside Canterbury in the Bear and Key. And who should come along to the concert was Pi Hastings. In his suit, he was an insurance salesperson then, and he'd been brought along by his sister, Jane, who was Kevin's girlfriend then. Okay, so that's how it all started for me. I probably need another question now to get back on the track. Okay.
Well, tell me a little bit about Kevin Ayers. I mean, he's such an interesting
figure. I can tell you a lot about Kevin. He was Kevin is I think his father was the organizer of all the music thing on BBC, on the TV, like Top of the Pops and all the rest of it. Okay. I know a lot more about Kevin and all that stuff. So I mean, Jane became his girlfriend, and how this became, because I mean the Hastings family were already in Canterbury because Jane had married one of the richest men in England and had the most amazing zoo. His name was Aspinall. That's just outside Canterbury, near Littlebourne. There was this zoo with a complete set of the most animals in a zoo in Europe. I think it's amazing. Tigers, elephants, the lot. Anyway, he was a very wealthy man. Jane, Jane when her name was Hastings before she married, she was the model, the waif of Mayfair, and of course Aspinall's club was in Mayfair. He had a gambling club, that's why he had a lot of money. And at the zoo, of course, Kevin had spotted this beautiful girl called Jane Aspinall, and he became the gorilla keepers, the cleaner for the gorilla cages. Okay, I don't whether this is totally true. I'm not sure, but it's a story I've been told. And he stole Aspinall's wife. Okay, and she had quite a lot of money, and first time I saw Kevin was when he arrived, when he'd been invited to Tanglewood, the Hopper home. Okay, and Robert had already met Kevin, and that's why he was introduced into the band as a singer. Okay, and he arrived at 45 degrees with a bottle of Matusé Rosé in one hand, and in the other hand was Jane. Okay, so that's when I first met him, and we played American music, and which is totally alien to me because I'm a choir boy. Okay, I don't sing in anything to do with America really. What were the tunes we played? Sitting over here on Hartsfield Farm, doo-da-doo-da, or what, whoa, I'm almost grown, yeah, with you singing the harmonies, yeah, Chuck Berry. And so for me, it was all a bit out of tune, so like the rest of it. And we also played some numbers of Kevin's and Robert's, okay, and I think possibly some of Brian's, which eventually got played in the softness. So what became of the Wildflowers? It moved on, and it became Kevin, Robert, and Mike Ratledge.
Right.
After many other stories, like what the Soft Machine started with David Allen, and they got quite, but they were on the go. I mean, they in France, everybody loved this music, and it went down to Cannes for a festival. And then when they'd done all this stuff and endless stories from that, when they came back to try and get back into England, of course, David Allen, being Australian, didn't have a work permit to get back into England, so he had to stay in France, where he formed a band called Gong.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a trio, and they got the recording going. I remember seeing them in the garden in a place called Watmore Hall, which is just outside Canterbury in Surrey, which Jane put up the money for them to. She rented this place so they could be together and play music. At the time, I was friendly with Pi. Because of all this, it was Kevin's girlfriend was Jane Aspinall, and so that's how this Canterbury scene started. In Canterbury, all friends.
Actually, in Canterbury, it would later become a term that people would use for a kind of music, and I'm very curious about, for you, what is the transformation that occurs from being a cover band during what we could.
Well, that was the Wildflowers, but Wildflowers became like a soul band. I left it because I really couldn't take the tuning and it. My main thing was the Beatles.
Right.
I had a little band in Canterbury, the school. I mean, Mike Ratledge, his father was the headmaster at my school, which is called the Archbishop School. I mean, I didn't have the brightness to go to Simon Langton. I mean, my father went to Simon Langton. Dave Sinclair's father, Frank Sinclair, went to Simon Langton. All those boys that you know about, as far as like Robert, Brian Hopper, Hugh Hopper, Mike Ratledge, went to the Simon Langton, Dave Sinclair, Simon Langton, also his brother, John Sinclair, and so it's like it's a media thing that came down. A guy called Al Clark came down and wrote about Soft Machine because they were the first ones out of the Wildflowers that formed a band that became had a record company, signed them up. That there they are. They I forget even the name of the record company, but it's they made that first record, and all those, all the boys that were in the Wildflowers, like my Pie was the first. I gave my job to Pie. Okay, I couldn't manage it. I didn't really want to sing that way of being. Okay, and so I escaped. I went to art college, and I remember being at art college and as not a fine artist or a graphic artist, but an industrial designer. One of the sharp pencil brigade. I remember doing art classes where Robert was a model. So I used to have to draw him in his underpants. Okay. And all that. I mean, even when I was in the Wildflowers, we did a concert at the art college then. Like many other people that came to Canterbury, like Ian Jury, what his band was. I forget what his band was called then, but I mean, Canterbury was full of music all the time. It always was, even before the so-called Canterbury scene started. It's always been. I mean, my great-grandfather's brother was mayor of Canterbury, okay, and so the sons, my grandfather was a photographer then and also an entertainer. So there's pictures of him that can now join the Canterbury scene because there's actually music in Canterbury, a photographer, a very specialized photographer that took portrait photographer for all the clergy and the rich people. That's what it was all about.
So church music was important to you? The first singing experiences were in choir?
Well, my father, okay, he was an entertainer and he sang in an English accent, like Frank Sinatra, okay, but the main thing was Nat King Cole, right? Amazing, beautiful music. I mean, and so really, my thing was for him. I mean, my father used to tape all the radio, top of the pop star, the popular radio of the media then. And so my whole upbringing was to do with English music. I mean, the first time I got to hear any jazz was on a very small reel-to-reel, tape, one of those 1.75 or whatever it is, with Hugh gave me recordings of tunes that he wanted me to learn, like whoa, almost going to sit love hero, all that stuff, and a few other bits and pieces. And on the back of that was the first time I listened to the most amazing music that I'd ever heard in my life. Okay, in 1963. This is 1963. Would have been in 1964 when I heard this tape. Okay, and it was Out to Lunch by Eric Dolphy.
Wow!
It just blew my whole deal round. I just didn't realise that people were able to play music together like that. And I remember listening to it for 2 years, nearly every night, counting rhythms and thinking, my God, that's unbelievable. This amazing music, And so I wasn't like a grammar school boy, like Robert and Hugh and Brian and the people that started the Wildflowers. I mean, they all used to swap American music and record it, and had all that jazz stuff, which I never really listened to till much later when I got into a band called Caravan with Pi Hastings. Okay.
Tell me about Caravan and how that got started.
To tell you about what Caravan?
Yes.
Well, it came from Wildflowers. Okay. I'd left it. I left Wildflowers, and Pi joined. He really wanted to be. He was got a much higher voice. I mean, he loved to sing soul music and all that. Robert was still drumming then, and Hugh and Brian, bass and guitar and saxophone from Brian, but it became like a soul band. In the end, I mean, Kevin had left it by then, I think I don't know what, I mean, I wasn't in Wildflowers then, but that they had other singers. I mean, before Kevin were about. I remember, a guy called Graham Flight, and also other people in the band that Hugh knew from school and all that stuff. Became Wildflowers when Kevin joined. He titled it Wildflowers, so we had a whole deal of that. There are recordings of that which came out on voice print, with people saying da da da. So Caravan, this is the question: is Caravan came from that because Richard became drummer in it. Okay, Richard Coughlin, and Pi Hastings was already in there. My cousin joined it later, and then it by then, the other members had left, and so it was a soul band, which Brian was in it still. Okay, and Soft Machine formed. Wildflowers stopped, and Pi decided that he was going to form a band with my cousin Dave Sinclair and Richard Coughlin. And this is after I'd been at college for 4 years doing industrial design art school, and I'd always remained friends, with my cousin Dave and Pi. And he said, would I join them and form a band? Okay, and I said, well, yes, I'm really trying to escape this art school and not have to go to London for another 3 years to study silversmithing, because I'd become a silversmith by then, And so I said yes, and we got together, and Caravan Fight didn't have a name then, okay, but it was Pi Hastings that made the band form, okay. First of all, my cousin was a bass player, not a keyboard player. He wanted to play bass in it, and I was a guitarist. I was like the rhythm guitarist or whatever it is, singer in it, but immediately it changed around where my cousin was going to play keyboards. So he got himself a Vox double manual organ, and we started like that. David and I worked on the Seven Oaks bypass, okay. Already I got to know Pi, while he was in Wildflowers. He used to come and stay at my house because he needed to go earn money, and he went hop picking, and so we went hop picking together. After that, we carried on. Pi organised this work on the Seven Oaks bypass, where I was putting shuttering in for the parabolic arches. I got the best job, and we earned a certain amount of money, so we could rent a place for 6 months in a little town called Whitstable. And I soundproofed it all out with several carpets and mattresses in the window and God knows what else. And we rehearsed there and played music every day. For 6 months, we did 8 concerts and got noticed by one of Jane's friends from International Times magazine, a guy called Miles. And because of that, Pi went hunting for a record company, because we were following suit to, Soft Machine that had already done a good job,
Yeah.
and got a record out, a very amazing record. That's still my favourite record, actually, the Soft Machine. And we followed suit, and we got this. Pi managed to go around several record companies, and eventually got to Verve label. Okay, and so our first record came out on MGM Verve label, and we signed contracts, which really meant we signed whole lives away, which is what the sort of thing you did then, So all the music that came after that, we waved goodbye to all our royalties, and Caravan started right from that. Wang, it's amazing. After 8 concerts, we were making an album, So
was the big breakthrough for Caravan Golf Girl, or is it something else?
that came later. It's just our first. Really, it was Pi's writing. I was never going to write music and stuff like that. I mean, you're talking about a record that became the iconic one. Land of Grey and Pink. I mean, I call myself now Graham Punk. Okay, but I mean, the first record was quite well received. We didn't make any money. No one knew about the Canterbury scene then and all that. That came much later on, when it became very popular, linked everything together. And so Caravan were, playing quite interesting music, mainly because of Pi. I remember one of the bits of music was called 3 and 2. He introduced me to music like Don Ennis. He listened to all this stuff. I had a tape recorder. I remember him taping. I got to know about jazz music really because of Pi.
Don Ennis, huh?
And I would have never written anything. It was Pi. And on that first album, I did two songs on the first Caravan album. One called Grandma's Lawn, the other called Mr. Policeman. I can see you creeping, Mr. Policeman, looking through the keyhole in my door, taking notes of all that floats, all that stuff, and Grandma's Lawn, And Pi wrote all these beautiful, which we all decided that the energy we put in, it was an equal thing. We're all leaders of the band. We're all credited each other as far as whoever wrote the music. It was split 4 ways, which is a very nice thing to do, in fact. But and then, of course, you asked about Golf Girl. Was that? But I mean, over time, it became the most popular thing. It was very much media orientated. I mean, all my songs, Golf Girl and Winter Wine and Land of Grey and Pink, the title of the actual album. I mean, grandchildren of the fans then now play it better than I did and sing it to me, right? When I left, my cousin left Caravan first. He wrote that great long piece of me, the opus, that 9 Foot Underground,
Right.
And which was, it was pretty, for me, it was quite like really good fun. I only play what I can sing. I'm not really a bass player, I just, and then of course our harmonic thing together, Dave Sinclair and our sort of harmony type idea, and we were brought up, in the same deal, I call it Pythagoras. Everybody says, well, what started the Canterbury scene? Robert's story is the best, it's the Italians' fault, They arrived at the end of Kent, and the first theatre in England was built in what is now called Canterbury. That's quite a good one, really. And he considers all the Canterbury scene, no, they're only a bunch of tourists, okay? When in fact the Canterbury scene is everybody leaping in and out of bed with each other's girlfriends and friends and that sort of stuff, It's like that's where the Canterbury scene started.
And it's
so Caravan. You're talking about Caravan. Ask me more questions, because I always go off at a tangent.
Well, I'm curious as to how, if you can define what the Canterbury scene was about. It seems like to someone like me that you are embracing jazz and rock and soul and all of these different elements to create
everything. Yes, everything that's in the media for sure. You know, I mean, at different states of being popular or whatever it is. I mean, for me, I was only there to be a popular entertainer. I mean, for sure, we were following in Soft Machine's footsteps. I mean, they were incredibly psychedelic and interesting. I mean, especially Robert. I mean, unbelievable how he played. You know, I mean, totally unique form of entertainment from him. You know, it's too amazingly Canterbury-esque. You know, I mean, for me, it's just Pythagoras. You know, I mean, I can read what I think of what all the scenes are on planet Earth, and they all come from this. Pythagoras conceived of us all in a system of musical spheres where everything in the universe has been designed to fit harmoniously. He believed that everything in the world is vibrating according to a preordained numerical rhythm, which we can learn to understand and use to great personal fulfillment. Okay, so I think you can say that about every musical thing. It is still heard, even the modern stuff. You know, I mean, even the weird and wonderful ways of rock in opposition or whatever you like. I mean, I was listening to your interview with Fred, right? Amazing, you know. Well, Canterbury scene, well, it's a little bit bland, you know. most acceptable pop rock music is, you know, compared to what Fred is doing. I mean, it's like, wow, you know. I can't wait to play with him and be less bland than he is, you know what I mean? Just like, you know, amazing.
Well,
and all
certainly, you know, Henry Cow won't accept the moniker of being a Canterbury band, and that's all.
Why should they? They're from Cambridge, and I mean, this is done by the media system. Okay, they linked it all together simply because all those. I mean, I'm probably the worst culprit. I link everybody to it. You know, why not? You know, I've got quite a strong personal way of. It's called entertainment. You know, and I really like to have. I like to sing to people. I don't want to have to keep thinking I've got to look at my instrument and remember what I've learned. You know, I just think, yeah, we've done all that, guys. Let's entertain people. You know, let's sing what we play. I mean, how many musicians do you know that the greatest on planet Earth, you know, that actually sing what they play, or any chance, you know? When it was, you know, it's like for me, Canterbury musicians are Jimmy Hastings, okay, flute, amazing, second to none, right? Tony Coe, second to none. Boom, there they are. And these guys, okay, don't sing all the time, but you listen to Tony Coe when he's working with Lowell Coxall, it's singing, you know. It's like, you know, my dad used to play with Tony's father. You know, I mean, for me, that is the Canterbury thing, and so yeah, for sure, you know. Soft legacy now, okay?
Right.
Well, I mean, they get work, okay, because of what was before, the Canterbury scene, okay? But, you know, there you go. I mean, what do you want to call it, you know? Have a chat to Carl about it, Carl Jenkins, you know. I mean, he's got some really good answers. He's a very popular media-orientated writer, isn't he? I mean, come on, it's like one of the great composers for popular music, you know. It's like,
but you talk about this scene, and I'm curious if you felt there was a differentiation between that scene and, say, the London scene.
London, you know, we how do I relate it to it? I mean, I got used to. I mean, I introduced the London scene to Caravan by asking Phil Miller to come down and play and Lowell Coxall to play, and because I'd already got Steve Miller into the thing. I mean, you know, that they were, you know, this is London Pip, you know, they're London-based musicians, and now you have the Soft Legacy, you know, all those friends. I mean, Roy, what a great bass, you know, Roy Babington and all the people that went through Soft Machine and all that sort of stuff, for sure they get related to Canterbury, because that's where their sort of Canterbury-esque jazz London thing happened very strongly in Canterbury, and it's got a massive audience for it now by linking everybody together. In 1990, I mean, my girlfriend that said it all, right? I mean, she helped everybody in her home. Caravan reform in her home. Hatfield, I managed to reform that later. Dave Stewart didn't want a bit. I mean, my whole history through these bands, Wildflowers, Soft Machine, Caravan, okay, and then I've got Hatfield the North, and then I moved to Camel, okay. And the way I am is very Canterbury, and so for sure I've got quite a lot of audience because of my singing and my bass playing. The way I am, I don't consider myself a musician. I'm just an entertainer, and that's why I play music, because I like to entertain people. And when you went and Soft Machine and Robert Wyatt, David Allen, you name them all that were considered to be in thing. They're very entertaining, and people like to group things. The media like to group it, so it's the media that group it all together. And so, yes, whether they want to be in Canterbury scene or not, it's a really good idea, isn't it? Because they're going to make money when they can't get concerts and things like that. To have a talk to Leo about it, Leo Beveridge, Moon in June Records. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, here's my point, though. My point is that there's an affectionate term for the use of Canterbury. It's a kind of music that we think of as being outside of what would be the typical London bands, and you guys had your own thing. And
yes, I know. I mean, but there you are. You're saying it. What is the Canterbury scene for you? That's it. I mean, it is, but very, very separate from all that stuff. And when you get to play with the musicians that started the Canterbury scene, they don't consider themselves starting a scene. They all say, talk to Pi. Yeah, the media did that. They grouped us all together. But yes, there is a certain harmonic deal of Canterbury. It's in the bird song. It's in the bell of big, Harry, it's slightly flat of what. It's all to do with, I can only relate it to Pythagoras, okay? Everything you play relates to comes out the speakers as you relate to it as this harmonic structure, which is like, there are only 12 notes that are different. They go like this. Body for me, ba, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which not many people learn to play their instrument like that, do they? La, the octave, ba-dee, when you swing a tune round, it does this tonal thing. Now, whether you're in tune to 440 or whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? That's how people hear stuff. That's how you learn to sing. People would rather listen to, if you're not a person that plays an instrument and all that sort of stuff, you still hear that inside yourself as a vocal thing, even when you're playing your instrument. It doesn't matter what you sing, it's all in tune, okay? Because you can sing from bam, bam, you can go, but it all relates to this harmonic series, okay? That Pythagoras sort of, and then because it's played on radio all the time, like the name, whether you're soul music or whatever it is, you relate to it for the terminology of it. And so is Canterbury different? Yeah, for sure it is, isn't it? I mean, it's very different from reggae music, but it all holds the same deal, I can only relate through it, but by knowing that I learned to sing, this deal that actually Pythagoras conceived of us all to be in harmony with each other, right? I don't know how to describe. No one is able to describe, other than that it sounds different from other bits and pieces. Usually because it uses all those notes in some way. Whether you're in opposition against it, and you're just making a din or whatever it is, and when it's not a din, it's music or whatever you want to call it.
So how does Hatfield and the North come together?
Well, it came together with me really bringing Steve down from London and joining Caravan, and we had Lowell, and so really Hatfield started off with Steve and I wanted to lead Caravan. I just wanted, and I really wanted to play with Pip. Okay, Pip Parr. Pip wanted to make a new band in London, and so Steve and I went up to join Phil, who also knew quite well. We'd all been playing together already, and we played a bit with Lowell. And Hatfield started by it being Steve Miller's Delivery, okay? Which also gets linked to Canterbury through Carol Grimes' Delivery, okay? With all those amazing London musicians that played blues, jazz and blues, mainly because of Steve Miller, okay? Anyway, we went up for them, and the first concerts we did were Steve Miller's Delivery. And we did the recordings of that, and also Steve brought out one of the recordings of Pip, Phil, and himself and me, and it's on I think it's called Song for You or something like that. It's on one of his albums with Lowell Coxhill, and that was the start of Hatfield and the North. Okay, Phil and Steve, the two brothers. Phil was a bit stronger. He wanted things perfected and written and sorted, and didn't want to be so free about the music. He wanted constructions, and so they weren't happening, and so. The first keyboard player that joined Phil and Pip and myself I got my cousin, Dave Sinclair. And my battery's gone low now. Hang on, it should be okay. And so, so the first Hatfield album, the first recordings, which are actually you can find on YouTube. We did a show with Robert in France, which is a very interesting show. And Hatfield started in that way, very linked to all our Canterbury-based things, And it's better for me. It was just sheer joy. Phil has always been a main. I spent 24 hours a day as he was writing the music and things. And as I was writing, not listening to each other or listening to each other and just playing music. His music's just amazing. What he wrote, I think his arrangement and way of having is entertaining. And the Hatfield were just too, like all rock bands and all that sort of stuff, just too loud on stage. That's all, If you got volume, there's not a lot of place you can be that's inventive, because the space of the air that you're going into is already full up with this din, right? So I always had trouble, but I always really, I just didn't listen to anybody else in any band that I played in. People say, what, you don't know Genesis? No, of course I don't. I only listen 24 hours a day to the people I was working with, because I was trying to perfect my way of, without, I don't read music, and to learn stuff that, especially when Dave decided he didn't want to be in it, because he didn't really get on with the idea of the music being like that. He's more sort of, popular entertainment really than Hatfield and the North.
You talking about Dave Stewart?
And Dave Stewart joined. Pip, because Dave wasn't going to be in it, we had to find another keyboard player. And of course, Pip was the one that knew all the London musicians and things like that. He knew about Dave Stewart. He invited him to come round to where we're all living. And I used to live with Pip in a flat in East Sheen, down on the South Circular. And he arrived and wrote it all out in 2 days and played it. And he was in the band, wrote it all out. Just all the things that we've been having fun playing freely and all the rest of it, he composed it into a mechanical, there it was in mechanics, fixed, over and done with, play it,
But that group
And we made our
improvised a
first
lot, no?
album. Excuse me?
Didn't that group improvise a lot, though?
We improvised on set structures. I mean, I'm always improvising. I mean, I'm not, I'm always me, I'm afraid. And which worked out pretty well, but I just got fed up with it in the end, not being able to get my deal. I wasn't strong enough to say, hey, I mean the tunes, as you know, are much more simplistic than the other three, I mean, Pip was the most amazing lyricist, and drummer and composer of songs and things and stuff. When it became more improvised jazz stuff, I mean, we at Hatfield, when they went to play concerts, it was never the same way of music. It wasn't like being when I moved to Camel, everything's set out, practiced, learnt, diddly bubbly bit. There's not a lot of chance to be inventive in it, okay? And with Hatfield the North, we invented a different way to play that music every night. It was different. Every night, we'd be going down the motorway at 90 mile an hour down through France in Pip's mother's sports car, a Capri 3.4 with Phil and I in parallel with each other, and Dave Stewart in the front with Pip, composing the set for that night, thinking bits and that links to that and that we're going to do this bit and and blah blah blah. For me, it was like, wow, people wonder why I didn't listen to anybody else. It's like I just remembered it all and just got on with it, and I'd lived my way through everything. That's it.
But your
So
voice,
that was.
your voice is such a big part of that band, as it is in every band that you're in.
Well, I'm a choir boy, and I like to sing, and I like to be entertaining, and so really, I'm trying to capture people's hearts because I was always in the audience before finding out what they liked. I was never in the band room saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this. We've done all that. Okay, this is the set. Wallop." And I'd be in the audience saying, "How are you?" Or, diddly-dee, and talking to everybody. And then I'd be back and I had more confidence then to be able to look out and see if anybody's going to. I used to sing to people that were singing along to the music, find that rhythm and do it. I was there to entertain. That was it, And so sometimes, I didn't get it quite right for the guys, but there you go. That's what happens. And in the end, I had to leave the band. I thought, I really don't want to keep playing this volume, God. I ended up having a few bits and pieces. I flew out at Virgin's expense. I mean, it's just the money factor. When you play that sort of music that isn't entertaining to the masses, okay, you're stuck with a few musicians, usually males, that are interested in what you play, And so really, I had this chance to be able to just keep singing like me, in tune, in time, finding the right ways, to entertain. It's like, and Pip's lyrics were perfect, weren't they? Now it's time to finish your wine. I'll try to sing a sober song just before the din. And even though you may be having quite a laugh, bashing bass and something or other is really rather dark compared to harmonics, And so, I was blessed to be able to play with these people, okay? Totally blessed, Like I'm blessed now talking to you and saying, look, Fred, excuse me, but this is what I am, It's like I can only play what I sing, and I do it at the same time, And I find the tunings and things like that. I try to push it into time. I try to push it into tune, And it's amazing working with Phil. It was unbelievable. The areas that he, totally unique guitar sounds, as you know. And I don't know whether Matching Mole, not Matching Mole, Matching Mole's another one with Robert sings. And it's just amazing music. It's just and it gets linked to Canterbury. Bang! Why not? You know, hooray! I'm pleased it does. You know, because really, I find a lot of jazz music very, very boring unless you can really play it. If I'm in it, I enjoy it. But if I'm not, I'm listening to this stuff thinking, well, here we go again. It's another bunch of jazzers, you know, that are just entertaining themselves basically by being very good at what they do, you know.
So is Camel then a better fit for you?
No, it's awful. It's really hard. I play. If anybody asks me to play, I'm there. I'm ready to play because they want me for what I am and what I play. Okay, so I was asked by really Andy Ward to join Camel, you know, and they wanted me to sing and play bass. So I went down there with a very beautiful girlfriend, made all their tongues hang out, and I can play their music more or less straight away because it's very easy music to play. But when I actually did get, because I'd never listened to Camel, right? Why would I want to do that? You know, it's like, and so for me, it was really good fun being asked to sing all these amazing tunes that Andy Latimer and really Pete Bardens was the writer for me. He was like a very good songwriter. And
Not
so
enough
was Andy
people,
Latimer, you know.
not enough people talk about Pete Bardens. He's really important.
He was the only real pop star that I knew. His friends were Eric Burden and what's the other one? And Fleetwood Mac and the other very popular bluesy type singer, radio thing. I forget what his name is anyway. But it's like they all came to his wedding, and I mean, Pete was a star, you know. It's funny when we're in airports and things like that with Camel, because they were the most professional entertainers that I work with. Okay, the whole thing was geared, set up for weeks on end to have 3 encores at the end of it. Okay, and so you work very hard for that. For me, it was just really the same announcement, the same way of playing, and after Hatfield the North, which was much more inventive and interesting for me. Okay, but I know I made the best job I could. I'm obviously not the right person for the band. I thought the bass player Doug Ferguson made a much better job than I did because he was very subservient to Andy Latimer's needs. Okay, Pete was a bit more open than Latimer, right? And it was me that got him to sing again because they didn't like their voices, and so they needed a singer and a bass player in the band. And also, I got the job because Andy Latimer had already done the bass part on some of the things that Doug Ferguson couldn't manage. This thing that goes.
Skylines.
I mean, I didn't even play that on the album. He'd already played it, you know. So, you know, diddly doodly don't diddly don't diddly don't doodly doodly bom ba doodly doodly bom. I mean, I've no problem to do all that sort of shit. You know, it's like, you know, well, I mean, I got this all from the band that I played with before, Hatfield the North. If you suddenly get a part that is written out, like, well, especially by Dave Stewart, I mean, I spent, you know, hours and hours just having it on headphones. I get them to play it, and so I could learn it and do it in that way, and then I can understand the harmonic of it, and then I play freely on a lot of that stuff, but still get back to. You imagine having to play Body do 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 dee do do body do baby do do dee baba dee dee do do baba do dee ba do go ga ga do baba go do go 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 without reading it, right? And so you know, so I mean, for me, that's what it was, you know, a bit sort of set, you know. Whereas Pip, Phil, and I used to spend hours and hours just having fun. When, especially when we started off with Steve, you know, and I used to love it. I mean, it's not that I'm saying that, you know, I just found it hard when someone just controlled everything, you know. And so I went bye bye, you know, bye bye, and wanted to do something else. I went to at Virgin expense. I went off to Mallorca and went to see David Allen because he'd invited me. I went up there with a reel-to-reel tape recorder, a bass guitar and a guitar, you know, Mission Impossible. And I wrote a little bit of paper saying, to Richard Branston and Simon Draper, I'm going to make you an album, and the title is Untitled as Yet. I went out there, and of course David Allen's house was full up with people, so he sent me round to Michael Music round the corner, round the coast, and I ended up going to Robert Graves' 80th birthday party. Okay, because it was very family friendly, wasn't it, to Robert and all that sort of stuff. That was amazing meeting Robert Graves. Goodness me.
Tell me about that.
Sorry?
Please tell me about Robert Graves.
He was amazing. He was completely away with the fairies when I met him. When I went, I was introduced to him by one of his sons, and we went up to the Robert Graves palatial area, overlooking the sea, just outside there, and he said, "This is Robert. This is my father." And he looked out to the sea. He said, "Can you see them? Can you see them?" I was going, "Oh, hello, what's happening here?" He was seeing visions, and things like that. So when I went to his party, it was a bit like going to a Bilbo Baggins party. It's like, it's amazing. There's these hot air balloons going up into the sea and all that sort of stuff. And there was Spanish people playing music, and yeah, very nice, very interesting person to meet. And his many girlfriends and all that stuff,
Shades of William Blake.
I don't know. I'm completely unread. You have to remember that I'm a B streamer in a secondary modern school, and all my grammar and information comes from my father. Okay, which is why I have this harmony ability to be able to put things in tune and harmony and things like that. So I know nothing of other philosophers and things like that. I'd rather write my own, and thank God I don't. I mean, everything's been proved wrong that I learned at my school now by simply the scientific way of study of what we all are and what it is actually proving what I learned. A bit like talking about the pyramids or whatever, All these stories are only human, aren't they? In the Bible, it's only a story from the Bible, okay, from people that wrote it 300 years, later. And so, I've no idea what God is. I know why I'm here. It's because of my mum and dad. Okay? We're still getting this close. I think this is going to go off soon. Hang on a minute. I'm getting low. It's gone red. Sorry, I've gone away with the fairies here at the moment.
No, you're here with me. Richard, we recently lost Trevor Tompkins. And
yeah.
I'm so interested in that project that you did with him, with Alan Gow.
Before a word is said, yeah. It was the most wonderful experience, yeah. Beautiful, all with Alan, who was actually dying of cancer then, and so he was having a lumbar puncture on the Thursday. Came back. It was made in 3 weeks, that album, and Trevor, what a wonderful person, eh? What a gorgeous... all three of them, amazing. I was blessed to be able to do that, And some of it I couldn't do because it was all reading music, and I didn't have enough time to study it, and, da-da-da. And so some of the bass parts were played by, especially Alan's music. Most of it I knew from Phil. His writing was a bit, more... I'd already learned quite a lot of that stuff,
But Gowan was such a special musician, wasn't he?
Yeah, they all were. Alan was just such a delight to be with. A more beautiful person, calmly, I mean, the best, the best of them all. The sweetest man you could meet on planet Earth, yeah.
That's such a great record. I love that record.
I can listen back to it now. I wish I'd done a bit more music of mine on it, I'm looking for that now, So, oh, goodness. And then, I mean, those three are off the planet now, I mean, and I'm always with them. Don't worry. I can talk to them every day. No problem, I always get good answers too, just by, even to think back now, thank you for that. But it's like, yeah. I mean, this is the best music that I played is with these guys, Also with Pip and, you know, Dave Stewart, and you name them all. It's like, you know, you're only as good as the people that you play with. That's what makes you sound good, right? That's it, you know. So, and I'm always happy if anybody asks me to play. But the trouble is, now it's a lot of young people that don't know how to listen yet, you know. It's only about listening, only that, right? If you can listen and whatever it is, you know, you just got to be able to listen to it. You don't have to understand what the music is. You've got to be able to, you know. Robert, here's the one, right? And a person like, you know, he's the Miles Davis of Canterbury, and he wouldn't tell you what to play. He'd just say, play. Just play to this. That's in the studio with Nick Mason and him. Amazing. Yeah, you know, I've gone round to see Robert already, and yeah, Robert, masterful band leader, the best, right, Robert? Easily the best. And because you were there, because you were there. He'd asked you to be there. He just play. He didn't give you a line of notes and a bit of written paper and all the rest of the shit, right? He just said, do, play, you know. And Nick was the same way. He'd come out and say, you know, well, how are we going to do this? And say, and I'd say, look, I'm listening to it already. I've listened to this on the cans. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. He said, oh right, you know. And I think at one time we put a mic in for my cans. And so I said, no, we're going to, you know, just play, you know, and it's great, really good. The only problem is they didn't. That's the Rock Bottom album, isn't it? I mean, the one that's good. I mean, Robert's made all his albums are good, right? I mean, to create, say, oh yeah, Rock Bottom's the number one thing. I mean, his whole deal is in there, though, isn't it? You know, his breathing and things. I mean, that was all thought up when he was on his back, you know.
Right.
In Mandeville Hospital, and you know, stuff like that, you know. No, not. It's amazing. I mean, the most, you know, the bum ba ba, you know, Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, it's great. This bit of music that goes forwards, and then halfway through it goes backwards. You know, it's like I'm the only one going through it. You know, because it's all done at different times. You know.
Yeah.
Laurie Allen on drums and all that, you know, on Gazy Fat and all that, the horn section and going backwards. And there you are going, you know, go, giving it one, just really enjoying, you know. I mean, Robert, just play, do it, you know, good. I had a great time in that, really, really good fun. I was a bit sad that they didn't mix the bass part up a bit louder, you know. It's like, so, you know, yeah, good. I mean, what was the thing about talking about Robert Graves and then Hatfield the North and all these things and then Camel and how I enjoyed it all. And when I didn't enjoy it, I'd left. But I always kept in touch. I reformed what became Hatfield the North after a concert in Gouveia. And luckily I did, because Phil and Pip weren't going to play again, you know.
Yeah.
Together. And we was asked to go to Fasano, where I live now. It's where I live here. I was asked to go to Fasano Jazz by Domenico De Mola, who ran Fasano Jazz then. And he said, Richard, you've just done a concert in Gouveia, and I was actually there. And he said, look, I'd really like you to bring your bands, which are called RSVP. I mean, it had Theo Travis in it. It had Alex Maguire, who was the keyboard player with Bash, that's Pip's keyboard player, Phil Miller, myself, and Andy Ward on drums. And he hadn't played for 2 years, right? Because he'd had a bit of a problem mentally about being on stage and doing that. And I knew that they was all his favourite musicians, you know. I said, come on, Andy, just come down and be you know, because he was the most entertaining drummer I'd ever played with. He was great. 24 hours a day, entertaining, like really good. But the trouble is, you know, he managed to swallow a load of alcohol and, you know, journey up the mountain, and it just blew it, you know, especially when they took over the bar in the hotel we were staying in, and then we had to do a concert. Anyway, I got nice recordings of that and all that stuff. But anyway, I had this phone call from Domenico De Mola. He said, I'd really like you to come and I want you to do a concert at Fasano Jazz. And I said, yes. And he said, can you call Pip up. And so I did. And Pip said, oh, yes, I would like to come play again. And blah, blah, blah. And so then, of course, when we got there, and he said, oh, by the way, Richard, it has to be called Hatfield The North. And so he reformed it right from my lovely band that had all these amazing musicians in the 90s in it. You know, I mean, I had all the great Canterbury, you know, I formed all these bands from 1990, you know. Oh, yeah, always forming bands, me, or reforming them and getting it done, you know, on TV or whatever. I mean, it's a lovely cut. I've got it. I'm just about to go and collect it because it's going up on Bandcamp. You know, I mean, if on this interview, if it gets broadcast and things like that, please get everybody to join my Richard Sinclair Songs Club, because when there's 1,000 people joining, I've got 50 grand, and I can fly to you tomorrow morning, okay, and come and play in your garden. That's what I want to do, you know, and play with all the people that want to play, and you know.
And people can find this
on
Bandcamp, yes?
It's on Bandcamp, Richard Sinclair's Bandcamp site. I'm putting up everything I've ever recorded or been on, every album, everything, all these things. It's all up on free. It's all for free anyway on YouTube, right? Everything. I've never had a problem with that because, you know, if people can't hear it and then they got to spend loads of money with a record company that doesn't pay you any royalties. So now it's my time to get some money from what I've done. And yeah, for sure of that stuff is going to be taken down. You know, like bits and pieces that I'm on in the new Caravan box set, or Esoteric Records, Mr. Mark Powell, who brought out all those things and did things for, you know, where's my royalties from these guys, right? Why don't they ever phone me up and say, hello, Richard, you're on this album and da-da-da-da-dee, and, you know, I mean, you know, what is that, you know? And so, yes, you'll find it all on my Bandcamp site. And if you join my Richard Sinclair Songs Club, like now, you know, there you go, Greg, stick $50 on my thing. And then I'll come and play for you for free or whatever you want, you know, or you can join my band, great. I can pay you money to come and join me, right? You know, that's what I'm going to do, because I'll have money then from the music I've made from 1963, you know, like tapes that I was given by Hugh Hopper with Robert on the piano, playing with one hand, and the other hand he's playing a cymbal. And you can hear him saying, in the background there's Mrs. Hopper washing up and the budgie, and there's Robert singing. No, we don't sing songs. We don't sing songs. This is 1964 tape, right? And I've got all these other bits and pieces of Hatfield and Pip washing up, and you know, he's amazing when he's washing up and singing, and all this stuff that people never get to hear. You know, I mean, the rehearsals, the arguments, the TV shows, and also I've always had a tape recorder on my bass amp where the mix is perfect. Okay, it's always perfect, especially if you're using headphones that have got the microphones on the outside of your ears as you're playing, right? That's what you hear. And I always have a really good position, you know. I can hear everything like bass players should, and singers, you know, that's it. And so I've got a lot of things like that, and many DVDs, mini discs, data. Oh God, it's endless here. And I just have to have someone to be able to master it all and send it to my mate in Seattle, because I can't do it, put things up, you know. So he's putting things up on Bandcamp for me when I should be doing it. And so we've gone through the ritual of all that, and I'll be doing interviews like I'm doing with you now, okay? And I just stick them up on Bandcamp if people want to know and hear about me or hear music and stuff, which is why I've got actually a guitar on at the moment. You know, when I'm talking about music, I like to play it as well, you know, or sing it, or, you know, not just talk about it.
For us now,
if you like, yeah.
Please.
I like starting from, this is how I write my tunes. So I always get a chord like and the actual melody is in the chords, isn't it? So you'd have a row at the beginning of it, so a bit of a row going on. Okay, get some sort of rhythm. All I need is some lyrics. My dog come up. Hello, dog. Usually happens when I'm singing and it's food time, you know. Got a low battery, guys, you know. And so, you know, I mean, play to whatever rhythm you like, you know.
Sounds great, Richard. Sounds lovely, as always.
Well, I don't know. You know, it just for the. I mean, I'm still writing new stuff, you know, and this, you know, like I'm trying to find lyrics and trying, you know, and always welcome to be invited to go and play with someone, you know. It's you know, and I'm doing I'm hoping to go to places like Brazil, you know, and things like that, you know, with like it's been the best day for you, buddy. You know, lots of different things, lots of rhythms, lots of bits and songs, and yes, please, you know.
Beautiful.
Oh, tell me.
So I'm so curious. You're living one of my dreams, living in Italy.
Yeah, welcome to come here anytime, you know. I mean, I just said that to is it Frank, you know, the guy that's been trying to help us do all this sort of stuff. And said, just come, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, just come down. And my place is total chaos. I mean, it's a very beautiful. Maybe I can't walk around with it at the moment because it's like. But I live in a place. It's a truly, you know. It's got cones on it. It's a stone building about 300 years old. My water comes from the sky. You know, it's like so. I've got free water. I moved here for very special reasons because, like, I can show you, this bit. I can show you. I mean, total close. My dogs are waiting to eat. There they go. Cat sitting here that's lost one eye just recently. Puss, puss, puss. There we go. Look, it's got a red eye, and that's the one that isn't working. The one on the one you can't see. And it's like family. I've got 5 dogs,
Wow.
1 cat, one chicken. I used to have, at the start of COVID, I had what was it? A lot of dogs. 27 dogs.
No.
Mainly puppies. Yeah, and then when COVID came, because we couldn't move any of them. Yeah, because I didn't want to keep cutting them open, and so they couldn't have babies. I've got a big enough bit of land that they could have all been on, but it's like I didn't have much money then. It's like, I was blessed to be able to find this place. I found it because of Domenico Demola, the guy that I was telling you about. That when Caravan went to Italy for the first time, it was after the TV show that we'd been asked to do in 1990 for Central TV, the Bedrock series. In fact, Pip and I did it twice. I did it with Hatfield the North, and I did it with Caravan, and Pip did it with Gong, and Hatfield. So I think Camel did it as well. But I wasn't in the band then. I wasn't asked to be in the band after I'd done a few years. But I mean, I got a long story. It's going to go up on. I'm going to do these sort of interviews with the guy that's putting up my Robert Kohlberg in Seattle. He said, look, he's a wonderful person. He's got the most amazing library of music, and he's only too happy to put all my stuff up. In fact, that's the only reason why it's happening. It's become a very close friend, and so when I come round in 2024, I'm just contacting everybody. I mean, if you could help me that anyway, great. I'll certainly be in New York, and all the places that I went to in '92 and '93, and just come round and just play. If people want to set it up, good. I'm trying to set it up with all the people I did it in '92, '93. Went round because it links everybody together. Because as you go round, you don't realise that some of these people can be friends with each other because they want the same thing, and they listen to the same music. And that's what I think's good about the Canterbury scene. It's the same thing. It's you pick on a certain type. I think the music that does come out of Canterbury is, yes, very different. It's very uniquely Canterbury, even though they don't come from Canterbury. I mean, what links us together is the love of each other and wanting to play with each other. That's particularly the Canterbury scene, okay? Yeah, you fall out of, you find different routes and things like I did when I left Caravan, when I left Hatfield the North, but I'm still able to go back there and repair those bridges that I broke, okay? And
love to have you, take the bridge over here to the New York area and do some playing.
Don't worry, I'm gonna take a plane. No, I'm gonna do it. No, it's happening already. It's happening just because of you now, right? But there's many people I contact.
Well, Richard Sinclair, what a pleasure and an honor to speak to you because
sorry about me. Sorry about me. No, but it's a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Greg.
We had our issues trying to get this to work, but it works.
Oh my God, we should put that up on. Put it up on the radio thing, especially me this end going, how do you use this bleeding machine? I don't trying to, That's the most amazing recording job that I've ever had to do, actually. Just to, I mean, I'm useless at all this. Well, I mean, I've got an iPhone. I've no idea even how to use that properly. It's like.
But we did it, and we've got you.
You did it. You did it, and Frank did it. Yeah, thank you.
And we thank Frank, and we thank everyone for listening to this. This has been the ProgCast. I'm Gregg Bendian, and my special guest today has been Richard Sinclair, one of my favorite musicians on the planet. And I hope that.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
We're going to hear him doing some great stuff in the coming months and years. And everybody, please keep supporting what we're doing here. Support what Richard is doing and all the great creative music that's out there. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Give us another shout. I really want to have a chat to you about many things, not recorded. When you get time, that is, of course,
Anytime.
And thanks for your time today. very nice to be talking to you. Yeah.
My pleasure.